Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy? Sports and Fitness Rants. I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Got another great video for you guys today. As usual, you guys know the deal on this channel, man. It's all about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, right? Stopping them from rewriting history, right? Holding these guys to a standard. And in this video, we're going to talk about Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls' 1989 run, and how that, to me, was way more impressive than LeBron James's 2007 run. That, the LeBron James fans, guys like Nick Wright, they love to talk about LeBron James' 2007 run to the NBA Finals. Like, that's really impressive, right? They'll say, oh, LeBron James carried bums to the NBA Finals. We're going to talk about this video, guys, because it really is not as impressive as Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls' 1989 run to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I'm going to talk to you guys, and we're going to break it down. I want to thank you guys, man. Everyone across the world, everyone across the states has been supporting my channel, man. Shout out to all you guys. Like I said, I'm truly, truly humble, guys, by all the support, for real. Everyone who came onto the live stream yesterday with me, Michael Jordan fans are the best, Uncommon Sense, NNB Sports. It was a great live stream. Shout out to everybody who came through. You guys were really, really heavy in the chats, man. Much respect to all you guys, man. Everybody in the membership, thank you to everyone in the membership. Shout out to you guys as well. I'm truly humble, guys, for real. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, like I said, man, you often will hear the LeBron James fan club. They love to talk about LeBron James' 2007 playoff run, right? When they say he carried bums to the NBA Finals. They love to bring that up. That's a feather in LeBron James' cap, right? A feather in his cap that he was able to carry bums to the NBA Finals. This is what they want you to believe. This ain't another narrative, right, from the LeBron James fan club and the media, right? Because the facts show, guys, and we're going to talk about in this video, how Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls, their run in the 1989 playoffs to the Eastern Conference Finals was way more impressive than anything that LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers accomplished during that 2007 run. Now, let's talk about these things, should we, or shall we? Let's think about, once again, we must keep in mind the team, right? The team that LeBron James was playing on versus the team that Michael Jordan was playing on, right? We must keep these things in mind. And if we think about the team, right? Michael Jordan's team was not as developed as the Cleveland Cavaliers of the 2007 NBA season. Now we think about the teams, right, as a whole. Let's think about Chicago Bulls, for example, guys. I mean, for an instance here. The Chicago Bulls, before the 1989 season, traded away Charles Oakley to the New York Knicks for Bill Cartwright in return, right? They swapped Bill Cartwright for Charles Oakley. Now, Michael Jordan was not happy with this move, right? Charles Oakley is one of Michael Jordan's best friends, right? Charles Oakley was the enforcer for the Chicago Bulls, right? Before he left. That's what he was known for being, like Michael Jordan's right-hand man. Who else was on the team? There was nobody else. It was Michael Jordan, Charles Oakley, right? So they trade Charles Oakley away, Michael Jordan's right-hand man, right? And now they have Bill Cartwright. So during that 1989 season, what you'll notice is the Bulls had taken a little bit of a step back during that season, right? Losing Charles Oakley, a solid defensive player, solid rebounder, and bringing in Bill Cartwright, right? Who was not as much as a defensive presence as he was a big body in the paint. That's what they needed Bill Cartwright for. His size, right? 7 foot tall, right? About 240 pounds, right? Bill Cartwright, like I said, just a big body in the lane, right? To clog up the paint, right? They needed that big body presence down low. So they swapped out a Bill Cartwright for a Charles Oakley. So the New York Knicks that season, guys, took a step forward as the Bulls took a step back. So we must keep that in mind, right? We also must remember, this is the first year that Scottie Pippen would become a full-time starter for the Chicago Bulls. Guys like Horace Grant now are starters now for the Chicago Bulls, right? They're in their second year now, right? They're starting to develop a little bit, right? So now you have a starting lineup with Michael Jordan, John Paxson, right? Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and Bill Cartwright. That would be the starting five for the Chicago Bulls going forward. So when we think about the 1989 playoff run for the Chicago Bulls, guys, right, in the first round, they go against the number 3 seeded Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers were a number 3 seed. However, they won 57 games, the second most amount of games in the Eastern Conference. Well, why were they a number 3 seed, though? Because if you guys remember, back in them days, if you won your division, then you were allowed a seed above. So, for example, guys, that year in 1989, the New York Knicks won their division, so they got the number 2 seed, even though they had less wins than the Cleveland Cavaliers. If you remember, that's how it went, guys. It didn't matter if you had more wins. If you won a division, then you were one of those top 3 seeds, right? So the Knicks were the number 2 seed, not the Cleveland Cavaliers, even though they had the second amount of most wins in the conference, all right? So they're the number 3 seeded Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. Now, we all know about this series, right? This is one of Michael Jordan's great moments, right? The 1989 shot against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Except, guys, the reason why that shot mattered so much, why it was so iconic, is because the Bulls were the clear-cut underdogs in this series. No one was picking the Bulls to win. Remember, that's what Michael Jordan was talking about going into that Game 5, right? He said, no one picked us to win. He said, today, we're going to prove you wrong. He said, we proved you wrong yesterday. We proved you guys wrong last week. Remember, there were guys picking them to get swept in 3 games, for them to lose in 4, for them to lose in 5. But Michael Jordan remembered all this stuff that the papers were writing down, all the reporters, all the media was picking against the Chicago Bulls. And why were they picking against the Chicago Bulls? Because the Cleveland Cavaliers were clearly the much better team. The Cleveland Cavaliers, once again, won 57 games to the Bulls' 47 games. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I believe, were the number 2 defensive team in the league that year, and I believe they were the number 9 offensive team. All right? So if we think about that, that's pretty damn impressive. I believe they were the number 1 team in the NBA in differential. They were number 1 in plus-minus differential. Number 1, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had 3 All-Stars, guys. A lot of people don't mention that. The Cleveland Cavaliers had 3 All-Stars on their team in 1989, guys. Mark Price, right, who's very underrated, would be in the Hall of Fame without the injuries. Larry Nance, right, who's a borderline perennial all-star player, borderline Hall of Fame type player, right? One of the great defensive power forwards, one of the great shot blocking power forwards in the history of the game, one of the great high flyers, rebounders at that position. Larry Nance. A lot of people remember him from the Phoenix Suns, but he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers for a lot of years, man, when they were battling against the Bulls. And he was an all-star on that team that year. And Brad Daugherty, who played with Michael Jordan in North Carolina, 7'1", Brad Daugherty, about 260 pounds, just a big body. Like I said, would be in the Hall of Fame without I believe he had a back injury. I want to say that cut his career short. He only played about 9 seasons in the NBA. But Brad Daugherty's on the Hall of Fame if he doesn't have the injuries. But they had 3 Hall of Famers on the Cleveland Cavaliers that season, guys. 3 Hall of Famers, and those are the 3 All-Stars, Hall of Famers. 3 legit All-Stars on that team. Also, we must keep in mind, the Bulls and the Cavaliers were in the same division, which means the Bulls had to play the Cavaliers 6 times during the regular season, guys. 6 times they played the Bulls. And you want to know something crazy, guys? They beat the Chicago Bulls every single game in the regular season, guys. They were 6-0 against the Chicago Bulls that season in the regular season. 6-0, guys. They beat them. Think about how hard it is to beat a team 6 times. They beat Michael Jordan's Bulls 6 times in that season. This is how good the Cavaliers were, guys. As a matter of fact, I believe the last game that they beat the Bulls that season, the regular season, they rested all their starters. They rested all of their starters, and they still beat the Bulls. This is how deep and good the Cleveland Cavaliers were, guys, that season. So they beat that team in round 1. Right, let's not forget, Michael Jordan had to hit the shot with 3 seconds to go left on the clock to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were an excellent team top to bottom. They had a deep team. You're talking about Mark Price, Larry Nance, Brad Daugherty, the guys I just mentioned. But also you had Ron Harper, right? A young athletic Ron Harper, I believe was in his 3rd season in the league, I want to say. So you had the high-flying Ron Harper, who was a 2-way player. You had Craig Elo, who was a knockdown shooter and basically a 3-and-D type guy. Shout out to Craig Elo, right? The guy who was there when Michael Jordan hit that shot, made Michael Jordan clutch it, right? Because Craig Elo with the late contest. You had him on that team. You had Hot Rod Williams on that team, a very solid power forward, right? You had guys like Mike Sanders on there, an athletic small forward. You had players on that team. The Cleveland Cavaliers were 7-8 guys deep, right? And they were coached by the legendary Lenny Wilkens. So in that series, you must remember, Michael Jordan had what? I think 3 straight 40-plus point games in that series, guys. I believe he averaged 39 points a game in that series. 8 points a game, damn near 40 points a game in that series, guys. He pretty much tripled up the next biggest score, the next high score in that series, guys, which I believe was Pippen at like 12 points a game. Michael Jordan almost averaged 40. So we think about that right alone. That's an impressive win, right? They were the underdog. They were not supposed to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. But Michael Jordan raised his level of play and led the Chicago Bulls as the underdogs as a number 6 seed over the number 3 seed Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. Okay? Now we think about the second round of the Chicago Bulls. They would face the number 2 seeded New York Knicks, I told you, who won 52 games that season. I believe they were the number 6 offensive team. They were a top 10 defense that year, coached by Rick Pitino, led by Patrick Ewing, Mark Jackson, Charles Oakley, right? Gerald Wilkins. I mean, they had a bunch of guys on that team. Kenny Skywalker. I want to say Kiki Vandeweghe might have been on that team. I could be wrong, but I want to say Kiki Vandeweghe was on that team. They had a very solid team, the New York Knicks, man. They had a team, I want to say they were about 7, 8, 9 guys deep. Once again, these teams are deep, man. Like I said, led by Patrick Ewing. And the Knicks that season, once again, I believe, like I said, they were 52 wins that year. They were the number 2 seed. I believe, I'm trying to remember, they had 2 All-Stars that year also. They had Patrick Ewing, who was an All-Star, and Mark Jackson, who was coming off, I believe, his Rookie of the Year campaign the year before. This was Mark Jackson's second season. Like I said, him and Patrick Ewing were All-Stars that year. So as you can see now, Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls, in the first 2 rounds that they played against 5 All-Stars, right? The Cleveland Cavaliers had 3 All-Stars. The New York Knicks have 2 All-Stars. The Chicago Bulls had 1 All-Star in 1989, guys. Michael Jordan. That was it. The New York Knicks, I believe, were also 4-0 versus the Detroit Pistons that season. The New York Knicks were a very good team. They were tough to beat at Madison Square Garden, right? They had a really good home court advantage. They were a very tough, like I said, scrappy team, man. So shout out to the New York Knicks. But the Bulls beat the New York Knicks in the second round, and Michael Jordan led the Bulls in all categories in that playoff series, guys. He averaged 35 points a game, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 2.5 steals, and over a block a game. During that series, guys, a 6-game series, they beat the Knicks 4 games to 2, right? And essentially, they won every home game that they played against the Knicks, and they were able to steal a home game against the New York Knicks. So they won 1 road game against the Knicks, and they won the 3 home games that they played, and they beat the Knicks 4 games to 2. And like I said, Michael Jordan led the Bulls in all major statistics all across the board. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, guys. Led the whole team across the board. Michael Jordan was sensational in that. If you go back and watch the 1989 second round against the Knicks, Michael Jordan was sensational in that playoff series, guys. Like I said, averaging 35 points a game on like 55% shooting or whatever it was now. I mean, it was just sensational. Like I said, man, the two-way play of Michael Jordan and all the other guys feeding off Michael Jordan. Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright, John Paxson, all these guys feeding off of Michael Jordan. But once again, the Bulls were the underdog in that series going against the number 2 seeded Knicks, right? Everyone was picking the Knicks to win that series, but yet Michael Jordan was able to raise his play to another level. Once again, I told you guys, this is one of Michael Jordan's greatest playoff runs. One of the great playoff runs, guys, in NBA's history, man. Beating teams that he had no business beating, the Chicago Bulls as the underdogs. And then that would propel the Chicago Bulls into the Eastern Conference Finals with a matchup against the Detroit Pistons. Now, this would be the second season in a row that the Bulls would face the Pistons in the playoffs. In 1988, they would get beat by the Pistons in the second round, right? Before they went on to the NBA Finals, the Pistons that year. Now, this year, the Detroit Pistons are once again the best team, really the best team in the NBA that year. They won 63 games that season, right? Coached by Chuck Daly, led by Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, James Edwards, Vinny the Microwave Johnson. I believe Mark Aguirre was on that team. I want to say Rick Mahorn was on that 89 team also. So you guys can see they're 8, 9, 10 guys deep. The Detroit Pistons, they were just a very good, deep, great team, man. Obviously, right? They won 63 games, right? They were the number 3, I believe, the number 3 defensive team that year. I believe they were like the number 7 offensive team. So they were top 10 in both categories. We all know the Detroit Pistons defensive exploits, right? These guys came to play. They played with a lot of heart, a lot of grit, a lot of physicality, a lot of toughness, man. These guys, like I said, they were formidable. And the Bulls faced off against them in the 1989 Eastern Conference Finals. This was the first year Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls would reach the Eastern Conference Finals after going through 2 teams that they had no business beating, right? Michael Jordan, like I said, playing out of his mind. And the Chicago Bulls would take a 2-1 lead in the series, a 2-1 advantage in the series with Michael Jordan. If you guys remember, in that game 3, Michael Jordan hitting the game winner over Dennis Rodman right off the backboard at the end of that game 3, guys. And they went up, and I believe in that game, Michael Jordan scored 46 points in that game 3, right? And they went up 2 games to 1. Like I said, they were playing over their heads. Michael Jordan was in another stratosphere, just completely carrying the Bulls on the offensive end. Go back, guys, and look at the the games against the Detroit Pistons, go look at his teammates. Guys like Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, Bill Cartwright. These guys were non-existent. John Paxson, they did not show for Michael Jordan. I told you, his best teammate in that series, you could argue, was Craig Hodges or Brad Sellers. You could argue that, especially in Game 6 when Scottie Pippen had the elbow, right? He got elbowed in Game 6 of the '89 Eastern Conference Finals by Bill Laimbeer and only played 2 minutes, guys, in that Game 6. He got knocked out of the game. But other than that, go look at the numbers these guys were putting up. They were 2 for 10, and Michael Jordan was carrying the Bulls to a victory, right? Horace Grant, 3 for 11, but Michael Jordan still leading them to a victory. Also, one thing that we must keep in mind that's never mentioned when we talk about the 1989 playoff run by Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan, the Detroit Pistons lost no other games during that postseason run. They didn't lose any other games during that postseason run, guys, other than the games to the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals. Those are the only 2 games that they lost the entire postseason, guys. They swept the first round against the Boston Celtics, the second round against the Milwaukee Bucks, and they swept the Los Angeles Lakers in the NBA Finals, en route to a championship. The only 2 games they lost was to Michael Jordan's Bulls, guys. That was the only team that could beat them. This is how formidable the Pistons were in 1989. A lot of people consider the '89 Pistons one of the 5 or 10 greatest teams in NBA's history, guys. They were formidable. So the Bulls were able to win 2 games against them, and then the Pistons would show their pedigree and beat the Bulls 3 games in a row. That would be the last time, right, that Michael Jordan would ever lose 3 games in a row in a postseason. The last time. And you guys all know that they never lost more than 3 games in a row starting of the 1990-91 season. But that 1989 playoff run was the last time that they would ever lose 3 games in a row in a postseason, guys. Never again would Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls lose 3 games in a row. And then the Pistons would go on to win the championship. But guys, as you can see, this 1989 run compared to LeBron James' 2007 run, it's laughable, guys. Who did LeBron James beat in 2007? They beat the Washington Wizards in the first round without Gilbert Arenas or Caron Butler. Their 2 best players that year. I believe both of them were on the All-Star team. Neither one of them played in that first round. They were injured. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, who they beat no one in the first round. A weak Washington Wizards team. Once again, they were not the underdog to the Wizards. I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers were the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference that season. I want to say, right? So we think about that way. They weren't the underdog. They had home court advantage against the Wizards, and they beat them. There was no one in the Wizards. I believe it was only Antoine Jameson there. That was it. By himself. Then the second round, they beat the New Jersey Nets, led by Jason Kidd and Vince Carter, right? Guys like Richard Jefferson. The thing about that is, though, once again, Jason Kidd was getting older now at this point in his career. This was not prime Jason Kidd, right? They always like to use the age excuse from Michael Jordan. There was no age excuse in 1989. Michael Jordan went against these guys in their primes when they were at the peak of their powers. The Cleveland Cavaliers were at the peak. The Knicks, maybe not the Knicks at their peak. The Knicks, to me, were better a little bit in the earlier 90s. But the Knicks, like I said, they were still a better team than the Bulls in 89. And obviously, the Detroit Pistons were at their peak in 1989. So when we think about that way, the Cleveland Cavaliers beating the New Jersey Nets, the number 5 seed New Jersey Nets, the number 6 seed New Jersey Nets, not impressive at all. Once again, the Cleveland Cavaliers were the favorite against these teams. They were never the underdogs against any of these teams. Never. Once again, and then we think about the Eastern Conference Finals. They beat the number 1 seed Detroit Pistons, who won 53 games that season. Not really impressive for a number 1 seed to win 53 games. That was the number 1 seed, guys, in the Eastern Conference that year, won 53 games. Meanwhile, right, the number 3 seed Cleveland Cavaliers won 57 games, but they were the number 3 seed. Right, the Knicks won 52 games, and the number 1 seed Detroit Pistons that year, ironically, won 63 games. But the number 1 seed in 07, the Detroit Pistons won 53 games. Right, and we also must remember, these guys on Detroit were older now. Right, I'm only bringing the age up, guys, because the LeBron James fans always love to bring up age when they talk about these things. How old were the Detroit Pistons? Remember, Ben Wallace was not there. Ben Wallace was traded now, not on that team anymore, right? Also, Chris Webber was on that team, but how old was Chris Webber? He was old now, guys. What is he in his early 30s? Rasheed Wallace, early 30s. All these guys were older now. None of these guys were under 30. The only guys I believe were under 30 was Tayshaun Prince and I believe maybe Rip Hamilton. Chauncey Billups was 30. Rasheed Wallace, 32. And I believe, like I said, Chris Webber was, I believe, 33 that season. So we could use the age excuse. Not impressed with LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers beating the 53-win Detroit Pistons that season. Not impressive at all. Not impressive as the teams that Michael Jordan and the Bulls beat during that 1989 run, guys. And then against the Spurs in the finals, they got swept. So what are we talking about here? They didn't even win a game. And LeBron James folded up. If you go back, guys, and you look at the playoff run by Michael Jordan, you look at the numbers he put up during the postseason, guys, going against the three of the toughest defenses in the league. He averaged 35 points a game, over 7 rebounds, over 7 assists, over 2 steals, and over a block during the entire run, guys. It's sensational. His next best teammate was Scottie Pippen, averaging 13 points a game. 13 points a game, while Michael Jordan's averaging 35 on 50%, or 50, I believe it was 51% shooting, guys, in the playoffs. LeBron James, I believe he averaged 26 points a game or 25 points a game in that playoff run. Nowhere near Michael Jordan, guys. Nowhere near. Michael Jordan averaged over 10 more points than LeBron James did in that run. So whose run is more impressive? Another thing that you never hear mentioned as far as his 1989 run that I want you guys to think about. Michael Jordan had 7 games of 40 or more points, guys, during that postseason run. 7 games of 40 or more points, right? They played 5 games in the first round, right? And I believe he had 3 games of 40 or more in that series. Then they played 6 games against the New York Knicks, right? Which I believe he had, I want to say, 4 games. No, he had 3 games, I believe, of 40 more in that series. And then we had one 40-plus point game in the 6-game series against the Detroit Pistons, guys. So we're talking about 12 games he played. 17 games. The Bulls played 17 games that postseason, and 7 of them, Michael Jordan scored 40-plus, guys. And I'm gonna give you guys something to compare it to, put it into perspective, how crazy that is. Like I said, going against 3 of the toughest defenses in the league that year. The Cleveland Cavaliers were the number 2 defense. The Pistons, I believe, were the number 3 defense, and the Knicks were the number 5 defense in the league, guys. And Michael Jordan did this. By comparison, I want you to think about this. LeBron James, most 40-point games, guys, in a regular season for the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? His first stint in Cleveland, or I believe his record for 40-point games in Cleveland in a regular season was 9. 9 40-point games in a regular season, guys. 9 games of 40 or more in a regular season. That was LeBron James' most that he ever did. Meanwhile, Michael Jordan had 7 games of 40-plus just in a postseason run. In one postseason run, guys. That's sensational, right? You're talking about Michael Jordan in what? His 3rd, 4th season in the league? I mean, it's just crazy, guys, when you think about that. Really sensational, right? So as you guys can see, man, Michael Jordan's 1989 playoff run, hitting the shot over Craig Elo to catapult the Bulls in the second round as the underdogs, then leading the Bulls in every major statistic against the New York Knicks in the second round, and then trying to lead the Bulls, over the Detroit Pistons, one of the greatest teams of all time, when Michael Jordan was not playing with anyone really developed yet. He was still waiting for Scottie Pippen mentally, Horace Grant mentally, Paxson, Bill Cartwright was not there. Like I said, Pippen was out for game 6 with the elbow, only played 2 minutes. So who knows what the Bulls could have done with a better Scottie Pippen, a better Horace Grant. If Michael Jordan had a little bit of help, but he was going against a legendary Detroit Pistons team. Once again, LeBron James did not face any team like that in the Eastern Conference. LeBron James didn't face any team like the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference during that run that Michael Jordan faced with 3 All-Stars in their primes. Formidable guys, formidable teams. So shout out to Michael Jordan, Chicago Bulls. The 1989 run is much more impressive than LeBron James' weak 2007 run to the NBA Finals when they played literally nobody in the Eastern Conference, guys. Nobody worth anything. Like I said, these guys were all older, right? The LeBron James fans love to bring up age, but then when you throw it back at them, LeBron James gets exposed. 7 games, guys, with 40 or more points during that run. Sensational. Just leading the Bulls, man. Right? Like I said, that was their first real significant run, the first time that they would make the Eastern Conference Finals. To me, that was much more impressive over LeBron James beating the Washington Wizards without Caron Butler or Gilbert Arenas, the New Jersey Nets. Like I said, man, Jason Kidd's an all-time great. I love Jason Kidd, but like I said, he was a lot older at that time. Jason Kidd was like 33 years old in 2007, 32 years old, whatever he was. They were much older. And these guys were the underdogs. They weren't the favorites to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in that series. The Nets were an underdog team, man. They were an underdog team. LeBron James, like I said, in the Cleveland Cavaliers, they didn't beat anybody worth a damn. The one time that they played a good team in the NBA Finals, they got smoked 4 games to nothing. 4 games to nothing. You guys know the deal, man. Once again, we must continue to set the record straight, stop the lies, stop the narratives, put some respect on Michael Jordan, man. Michael Jordan's 1989 playoff run is way more impressive than that run by 2007 from LeBron James. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.